I gotta be honest, dude, you make no sense on paper. Like zero.
Don't follow best practice. It does not differentiate you at all. The experts don't necessarily well introducing breakthrough.
It's fascinating that you came to the country with $50 in your pocket. You had no idea what you would focus on. It was really more built around, here are some people that I want to work with. Did I understand that right?
Yes. Muesly is a great example. I knew nothing about bioscience and dermatology, right? And literally, that's not my field. You're gonna figure it out. I would never have figured out Muesly without doing it, right? So by doing it, you will figure it out. From 0 user to about 8 million downloads of the app. Altogether, we got 20, 30 million monthly readers. We have grown from, one patient, my wife, to over 1 million.
Wow. You created a successful business by solving a problem for tens of thousands of people, and all you have to do is then get their voices out there.
They tried everything, nothing worked. So how do you convince someone like that to try for the 51st time, right? After they fail 50 times.
The easiest way to grow your business is to positively impact people's lives.
Business win, lose on the last mile, right? We wasted $2 million to building this marketplace, and looks like it's gonna fail. It's gonna fail miserably.
Making the jump from tech to consumer seems kind of weird, doesn't it? Why would you trade all those juicy SaaS multiples for, consumer? There are just not that many founders like the one you're about to hear from. This founder has built multiple companies to very large scale, taken one of them public. He has been an angel investor and a VC in the Bay Area for years, turning a series of investments into like $100 billion worth of companies. His brand has broken completely new ground, an actual category creator in telehealth. Teledermatology is what I'm learning now. They offer treatments for hair, body, and longevity. Launched in 2019, that is only 6 years ago. This company has already treated over 1 million people, 1 million patients, and surpassed 9 figures in revenue. Oh, and he might be the only consumer founder that I know of that has had to pivot his company twice before landing where they are today. This is Operators Titans, brought to you by AppLovin, and today we are talking with Jack Gia from Musely. You are so not going to want to miss this one. Okay, so Jack, I was reading the brief that I got for the show, thanks to Aaron, our lovely chief content officer here. I got to be honest, dude, you make no sense on paper. Like zero. Okay. So what I want to do is I would love to start and by no sense, I don't understand why a tech guy with your background is in consumer. It's not tracking. So maybe if you can start with a bit of your background for people. And I think that'll set the stage for everybody listening as to why you don't make sense on paper, because we're talking to a consumer operator right now. But I would like people to hear, where did you start? Give us those early career, company building years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done 4 companies. I think I was born to be an entrepreneur. I do remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, reading a book about Silicon Valley when I was in China, growing up. And I saw how engineers in Silicon Valley was making things happen and building things. And I said to myself, I want to go there one day. So
Which part of China did you grow up in, Jack?
I was born in Beijing, but I grew up in Chengdu, China. I spent 12 years in Beijing and 12 years in Chengdu, which is, where the spicy food comes from. So I came to US when I was 24. I was doing my PhD in NYU. But I really hated New York City back in the late 80s. And so I decided to fulfill my dream, come to Silicon Valley.
How do you even do that? I'm guessing it's really hard to get accepted as a PhD student to NYU.
In the 80s.
In the 80s. Yeah. It was very difficult because I didn't have money. A lot of the fields that I had need to go into, I was in computer science and computer engineering already. and it was very difficult to get, TA or fellowship. So I had to started actually in math first. I was in Ohio, Akron, Ohio, for mathematics so I get a TA. I only came with the $50 in my pocket, and I was able to then go to NYU and talk to the professor for the work I've done, for the master works we have done, which was in fault tolerant computing, which I don't even know. It's like NASA would use something like that, redundancy and to increase reliability and fault tolerance. That was sort of the research field I had from China. I was able to convince the professors to give me a fellowship so I can, work there and while doing my PhD.
So you're like a rocket scientist level mathematician. Am I getting this right?
Well, um, kind of, but there's really nothing rocket science these days. I realize even rocket science is pretty simple, pretty easy to understand once you get.
Yeah, as said by a PhD. Yeah, I'm sure it seems simple to you. That makes sense.
I'm serious. Yeah, yeah, it is really. I think it's all about seeing through the rocket science and then figuring out what's the common sense behind it, and that's really have been my way of doing all these startups and innovations.
And you went from, like, I mean, so for people listening, like, the funny, we're laughing because Jack runs Muesly, right? So you went from, like, fault tolerance, computer science, or as Mike calls it, rocket science, because to everybody, that just sounds like rocket science, to skincare
Yeah.
over, like,
It's a very natural
so
progression.
it makes complete sense, right? Like,
I need
just
to
a
plumb the
natural.
depths of mathematics.
Yeah.
And to the deepest levels, hit the highest levels of academic achievement in mathematics
Yeah.
so that I can sell skincare products. I'm gonna agree with Matt. This is not the typical consumer story.
No, and I think when I was going through it, Jack, it's like, and you've done this over decades, right? Like, your first companies, you started out, I think, in the '90s, uh,
90s, yes.
with your first company, and so you were one of those few people who've, like, genuinely experienced the dot-com bust, and then genuinely experienced the, what do we call 2008? Is there a term for that? The Great Recession? Is that
Yeah, financial crisis.
Great financial crisis.
the
Yeah.
Great Something? Yeah. Uh, there's not a lot of you out there that are building in consumer, actually. Like, most consumer founders are pretty young. Like, there's not
Yes,
technically a lot of gray hair in the space.
that's right.
So, could you, uh, just tell us a little bit about, like, is there anything common between going from enterprise software to, building a Muesli?
Yeah, I would say definitely. This is something I didn't realize those commonality initially, but it became more and more obvious. All these things are quite simple when you look at the fundamental patterns of things that you need to do, right? So, you were starting. If we go back to the very first company I started was actually in the 90s, right? It's called VMAX America. But at the time, I was just trying to learn the fundamentals of business. I was a trained computer scientist, right? I know how to program, but I know nothing about business. I was doing MBA on the side, but that didn't really teach me too much. And I decided to start a company and learn business to sell originally Apple or actually California orange, sorry, California orange to China because I have, no people in China. So I end up ship a few containers of oranges from California to China. That was how I learned the basics of business 101, basically. And that, of course, the orange market wasn't that interesting. The market size is very small and it's very competitive.
Say.
So I end up there was something that's unique at the time, and this is 93, 94. PC just came. My Dell computer was still pretty small. The dominant PC player was AST back then, and I realized Micron, the memory chip company, was also doing a PC at the time and just starting, and they were winning all the awards. So I decided to, hey, instead of selling oranges, and let's sell PC. So I end up contacting Micron, and they knew nothing about China. And they say, okay, you want a China market? Here's yours. So I was able
Holy
to
smokes.
really build a business, pretty substantial. I mean, by the standard that I had back then, tens of millions of dollars of revenue, and moving Micron PC to China, and ultimately have to reassemble them together because there was a lot of tariff back then also going on
Yeah.
between the two countries, and the parts are much inexpensive to export. Everything was made in USA back then.
Well, it's changed a little bit.
Yeah, quite
Um,
a bit.
so you started out exporting to China. Then you at some point made a jump into enterprise software in the 90s. Um, and then from there, you were a venture capitalist, as I understand it. You've made a ton of investments. And then you wound up in consumer. So this is why you make no sense. Like most people start in consumer, realize the multiples. It's a very difficult industry. Like you have real cost of goods sold, real supply chains. Like there's so many moving parts to consumer. Then they come to Jesus and figure out like, oh, there's this SaaS thing over here where everything is different.
Right.
Working capital is negative. The multiples are great. There's like, it's a whole different animal. You've done it in reverse.
Yeah, yeah. In some sense, I didn't do this consciously, but it was really the three key things, right? To start a company, you need to have the right market, you need to have the right team, and you need to build the right technology. And for me, shifting from selling PC, which is also a terrible market, better than the orange market, but still not much better.
What were the margins in that?
Oh, yeah, margin was
Um,
maybe a single digit percentage margin,
yeah.
and so you run like a supermarket kind of margin to really survive, right? To be competitive. Even back then, it was considered to be innovative at the time. So when .com came, naturally, I said, well, Silicon Valley.com was much more interesting. I already learned the business part of the business, so I can reapply that to a much better market, which is internet was .com was starting, right? And that's why, sort of interwoven became my focus rather than this PC business. So it was more of a market shift, um, and so that was that. And then I did that for a few years, about 8 years, and for Interwoven and zero to IPO was really quick back then. Literally zero to IPO to worth 7 billion all happened within 3-4 years.
Wow.
And so what time period is this? Is this during the dot-com bubble?
Yeah, in '96 to 2000. Um,
So what did you do? I gotta hear, like, did you have a bunch of stock? Did you sell at the top? Did you ride it to the top and all the way down? Like, what happened?
Cuban yourself
Yeah,
or
yeah. So I sold enough to be not don't have to worry about money for at least my generation and my next generation, my son's generation. So that was kind of but I still left a lot of money on the table, right? So the company was Interwoven was solving a web content management problem, and the solution was quite simple. Again, talking about not rocket science, right? We said, well, how do we solve so much web content people are developing, right? You got not just the words, and, um, the writing itself, but also the images, and you got the code that drives between the images and text, and so all that asset needs to be managed in some way. And as a software engineer, we're all familiar with software code management software, and we literally use the same concept. There's a company called ClearCase back then that was actually our model. I said, okay, let's use this ClearCase model for software development, instead using it for web development.
Okay, so I gotta ask a question here. I was in college when the dot-com bubble happened. If you could go back and live through that period again, what would you change? Because obviously, like, you're in the middle of a massive bubble where there's crazy valuations and everybody got swept up in it. But if you could go back and tell yourself something from the future, how would you tell yourself to handle it differently?
Well, first of all, sell all your shares.
Sell everything.
So
That's
buy
right. Sell it all.
so so
At the beginning of, whatever, 2000, right? Like,
yeah, yeah.
you would top it.
Yeah, nobody knew that the bubble was gonna burst that quickly. And I remember having conversation with our CFO, and he was relatively conservative as a CFO. He said, "Well, this valuation was too crazy," but everyone said, "No, this should be even 10 times more valuable than what we're seeing," right? I think you can apply that to AI today. I don't know where that's gonna go, but there's definitely a lot of similarity.
Quick break. Operators Titans is brought to you by AppLovin. This is an S&P 500 mobile gaming ad platform. It is opening up its self-serve ads manager Axon for the first time ever, and it is offering you, our listener, $5,000 in ad credits if you spend $5,000. That is free money. You should take it, but you need to have an invite-only URL and a code to get access. We've got that for you. Just stick around for a second. Look, first, before we get into that, my brand, Peel Case, we have been advertising with AppLovin since, I think, October of last year. We have spent a lot of money here. We are ramping up for this Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The reason we are doing that is AppLovin has quickly become the most incremental ad channel for us in 2025. We've recently done a holdout on this with House, another great partner of ours, and it has proven actually the most incremental of all new channels that we've tested this year. It is now our number 3 spending ad channel behind Meta and Google. Do you know how hard that is to get to that spot? I actually think they can overcome it, but we'll see. Here is why we like AppLovin at our brand. First is it is audio on vertical videos of your best performers. You don't need new ad creative. Just take the stuff that works and run it on AppLovin. It is unskippable at 100% thumb stop rate. Yes, 100%. And an average view time of 35 seconds. That is basically television. You should try it. And new customers based on an army of incrementality tests to prove results. And that's not all. You'll get access to a live operators mastermind we're running, plus our playbooks to scaling across these channels. Wherever you're seeing or hearing this, you go to 9operators.com/AppLovin. And yes, of course, this is a sponsored show. But our brand, Case, is spending our own money to run ads on AppLovin. The rest of the operators are too, and I think you would be silly to at least not try it. I really recommend you do the same. Let's go back to this Titans episode. When you got into being like, so you're doing angel investing, which is a pretty common thing in Silicon Valley, right?
Right.
Like that's
Right.
like my understanding of the Bay Area is just the density is so high and you just meet so many people. It's also incredibly supportive of entrepreneurs. Like, the founders of the rare resource. So you were doing some of your own check writing on the angel side. Was that the ramp into I'm just going to do this as a
Yeah.
job?
So
Be easy.
after Interwoven, I started another company called Bayno. And I ran that company as CEO for about 6 years, which is actually the AI company then. It's just we use a smaller language model. We use CPU instead of GPU for basically knowledge computation. And at the end of that, I really felt I really want to do some more investment because it became, you know, very interesting. The market became very dynamic at the time. This was around 2010. So
Mm,
from 2010 to 2013, I was a full-time investor. And I helped a fund called GSR Venture to start. They were really a Mayfield here in Silicon Valley kind of
okay.
spinoff to focus in China investment. And with my background in China and the tech booming, so I felt like, hey, I can go learn more what's going on over there, right? And so I spent half my time in China during that period. And that's where I got into the consumer. So that starts why I got into the consumer is there's nothing enterprise software to invest in
Yeah.
China at the time.
Yeah, it's physical goods driven.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, and it's consumer
at that
driven,
time.
right? It's
Yeah.
just population is there. There's all these new innovations start to come up, different models. So my claim of fame during that period for GSR was really trying to find Uber China, and ultimately we found DD Taxi, which it was very very small, and they were literally just with one taxi company as the trial testing at the time. So we're
You
about
invested when they were at one taxi.
one a taxi company, right? So
Okay.
not one
Well, yeah,
taxi,
but
yeah,
they
taxi
had
company.
not scaled at all.
Not scale at all. So that's why we invested about 4,000,000, own about 30 some percent of the company.
Are you serious? And you led that round? Like,
Yeah, I led the whole initiative, and we actually it's a long story, we had to pivot a couple times, started with a different company that was actually got some scale already. It's called 用车, rent a car, and they were the true Uber of China. They literally you can get black taxi and black limos from that company. But there were some team concerns. In fact, we almost invested in them. I was able to, help the CEO to build a strategic partnership with some of the U.S. car company. They really want to have a strategic investors in this case, and so flew the CEO and his wife to visit this company, and then ultimately that company also decided to join us to invest. But it was in the final, really, we finished all the legal document. It was about to, wire the money. There were a few things that came up in the last minute, uh, basically concerned me on
Mm.
whether this was a really A plus team. That was kind of the concern. That those example helped me to realize maybe this is not the best team that we could invest in China. Didi was not even founded yet at the time. This was kind of maybe a year and a half prior. And so ultimately we pulled the plug and not invest in that company, Yongchuo, which is, rent a car, and waited until somebody finally says, "Oh, I start another one. Here's the DD," and then they
Wow.
not only the market they focused was correct, not really focused on black car, but more focused on taxi, normal taxi, and then people can actually afford. And then also the team was very different. There's
so
yeah.
what was the gain? What was the gain on this DD investment? You bought a third of DD at $4,000,000? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, yeah. That's our ownership, and then we sold, when they were worth billions, even early on, and then over time, and mostly sold off now.
That's amazing.
That's interesting.
That's a great investment story.
Yeah. And that okay, so you're in China, this gets you introduced to consumer, and while you're an investor, as I understand it, around 2012 is the original company that is now Musely, right,
Yeah.
is starting in 2012. Did you, as a co-founder, were you going in saying, like, "I'll be capital," or were you gonna operate? Like, how did that all start? And because it didn't start out called Musely either.
Yeah, yeah. Our legal name is still called Trusper. Trusted helper is the made up word.
Yeah.
We I so the short story is I was doing a lot of investment in China, but at the time, especially in Beijing, it was extremely polluted. If you have been to China during that period, I felt I was poisoning myself to death every day. I just didn't feel like this is healthy for me personally. So late 2012 is when I decided to move my focus back to US. This is just not good. Um, and the company was incorporated, but we didn't really have any sort of a idea where to go after yet. Around early 2013, late 2012, it so happened a couple of my old co-founders from the past, founding team members, happened to be available also. And so I gather everyone together, sort of four or five of us, says, "Hey, let's build something different this time. Let's build something maybe in consumer instead of enterprise. That's kind of boring, right? We've done that many times now. Let's do something new." And So the inspiration to build Trusper was really my backyard golf green project. At home, I have this black notebook full of tips, literally hundreds of home and garden tips, which I love to do. That's my hobby. And one of the hobbies is golf, and the other hobby is home improvement. So I tinker around the house, and over the years, I have hundreds of these tips, saved me millions of dollars. And around, just a few years prior, I built a backyard golf green, and that was probably the most dramatic example of those tips and how much it can help, if if you have the true common insight of what's going on, or the common sense insight.
And Trusper was Trusper, I guess, like, as I'm understanding it then, it was born out of this insight that, like, something needs to exist to help people with, like, all these everyday common problems, common tasks.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it almost seems like the long tail of problems.
Yeah, it is long tail, but it is something that if you own a home, in this particular case, we thought we'll start with home and garden example. But of course, that was sort of more inspiration turned out to be. We decided to go after women instead of my golf green, backyard golf green, which was actually very dramatic. I love golf, and I decided to build a backyard golf green, right? I thought no big deal. But then when I got the professional, there are very few companies, and was, by the way, 2004, so post.com. So Silicon Valley was very slow at the time, and there was no construction, no project. And the only golf green builder that I know, uh, basically was asking for $300,000 to build a golf green, right? And
Wow.
just didn't make any sense. But however, he said, your next door neighbor, which is one level below me, did build one actually. He actually built two golf greens for $500,000. So I just asked some dumb questions like, wouldn't this just be grass growing on sand? Why would it cost this much? And then he bullshit me about, oh, this is USGA standard golf green. And that, as an entrepreneur, I say, okay, USGA standard.
Yeah.
So what's that look like, right? I just went to USGA website and try to figure out what that standard is. And turned out there was no standard, number one. There was a guideline, however, on how to build it. And next to the guideline, I also saw a videotape and a booklet for $25. So I said, okay, let me just order them. And the booklet was no more than 10 pages, very, very simple with picture illustration how to do it. And then the video shows the process a little bit, probably a 5 minutes video. It was really, really simple. I mean, it's just 12 inches of sand and 4 inches of fine gravel. And below that, you need a bigger, rough base rock, because the drainage is very important for these long grass. Although it's only sticking out a quarter on the top, but below it, the root is a foot long, right? So you need to put a fishbone shaped pipe in the base rock, so that it collects the water and drains away. It was pretty simple. So I was doing landscape renovation anyway. So I told my guys, hey, go watch this tape, and we're going to build a golf green together. And I was a public company CTO, by the way. I was doing Interwoven still. The 4 or 5 guys never done anything remotely like that, right? And we were able to build it labor plus material. I didn't even touch the sand. I was just giving them instructions, and for 5,000 versus 300,000. And we follow the book. So our green was actually better than my next door neighbor's $500,000 green. When it came, 2 years later, it rained really hard in Silicon Valley, and his professionally built $500,000 green had 2 inches of standing water, and the grass died.
You were built to be in consumer. But
Yeah, I mean,
looking at the
so
cost reduction.
that principle turned out to be extremely important to build any business.
Yep.
Uh, and and I mean, now I think, recently in the last couple of years, everybody is talking about the first principle of innovation. That's really a fancy way of saying the first principle.
Yeah.
Jack, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's fascinating that you came to the country with $50 in your pocket and you have this track record of being very efficient with cash. Even I know in your current venture, you really emphasize that you grew it without burning a lot of capital. But it is so interesting how the putting green is like a microcosm of that idea that so often in business I see people pay money because there's informational asymmetry and they're really just too lazy to try and teach themselves. They end up hiring a vendor to do something for them at 5x the cost. They could do it internally, but it seems daunting and they don't want to take on the challenge of trying to learn. I mean, whether you're talking about doing your own Amazon ads or anything else, I see it over and over again. And so, what I love that you communicated there is just a willingness to roll up your sleeves and learn and take on tough mental problems is a lot of what it takes to successfully bootstrap a company.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the DIY, do it yourself principle is so critical for building, not just small business, even large businesses. And not this is definitely not a lesson just for the backyard project. And we have repeated that so many times in the current Muesly business. We're relatively large now, right? And that principle is still guiding us and to create new innovations every day, right? By hiring someone spending huge amount of money, is only going to give you more of a baseline. It will never give you that differentiation you need to really be the winner in your space.
Mm.
I've always felt like the downside to not teaching yourself is how are you supposed to hire the right person if you don't understand it enough to know what good looks like? It's not that I'm opposed to going and hiring people, but when I'm ignorant about what it takes to do the job well, it's difficult for me to even make a good hire, whether that's internally or somebody to partner with externally. I'm sure, like you kind of mentioned it, once you learned what a good golf green looked like, you realize that the person you would have hired wouldn't have even done the best job for you, but you didn't know that until you put in the work of understanding what it takes to build a really good golf green.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have to learn, right? I mean, this Muesli is a great example. I knew nothing about uh, bioscience and dermatology, right? And literally, that's not my field. I'm a scientist, but only in computer.
Mhm.
So, um,
Yeah, you
so
couldn't get further away. And
Matt, can I
I
ask one
understand.
question to go back? I just want to ask one question I thought was interesting because I just want to make sure I understand this right. So, Jack, when Musely was started, you had no idea what you would focus on. It was really more built around here are some people that I want to work with. Did I understand that right?
yes, yeah. And then we said, well, consumer is more interesting than um, traditional B2B technology, which we've done a few times. Also, the impact is quite different because, again, with the DD and then Uber here, and there's tons of other consumer company. I have few angel investment in Airbnb and a few other consumer tech company, and they all start to become interesting at the time. I mean, even in 2012, 2013, and they were start to become sort of impactful. In fact, Zoom, I don't know whether this technology we're using behind the scenes has Zoom or not, but, Zoom founder Eric and I were friends and we were also trading shares of each other's. And so focus on consumer was something that we felt it was more intellectually challenging and interesting and impactful. Um, at the time, I thought, well, the thing that impacted me the most was these tips, right? So we decided to, okay, let's put these tips online and inviting consumers to participate these home lifestyle tip creation. So we built an app, and in the app, it literally the icons is basically tips. That's the word that we use. And then we decided that my backyard golf green is not a good market to go after in terms of tips, right? The addressable market size is
It's
probably
a
zero.
very specific group of people that want to build their own golf greens.
Right, right.
I would agree.
That definitely. So we knew for sure this is a woman focused app. Needs to be lifestyle, woman lifestyle tips. And of course, we invited a bunch of women to create, just whatever they want to create before we launched it. So we had about 1,000 tips when we launched it, and the number one category of all the tips that these women around us created was no surprise beauty and skincare. And there's a thousand ways to do hair, 1,000 ways to do makeup, 1,000 ways to protect your skin. So that's when we launched it. It was women beauty and skincare focused app.
Yeah, and I think that's actually interesting. One of the interesting things to me, Jack, is you got together with this founding group and you did exactly what I would expect somebody in the Bay Area to do in consumer, which is launch an app first, right? So like go after app.
Yeah.
You built I mean, it's a huge user base over several years um and started to notice this beauty thing. When you were building when you were like this first version of Trusper, right? And you were scaling up the user base, had you figured out I guess the financial model of the business yet? Or was it still just like, no, we just want eyeballs?
No, no, it was a pure eyeball play. So
Okay.
we did that for 3 years, from zero user to about 8 million downloads of the app, and then across our website and social altogether, we got 20, 30 million monthly readers of these tips. Right, we got about a million tips created by women, everyday women. So that's how we got a lot of tractions, but without any business model, without any revenue.
You build up this massive user base. And then this decision at some point is like, we're going to transition to what is today Muesly. I'd like to just start with how did you guys decide to so beauty obviously was standing out. So I get that the intent and the users are there and this is like the topic. But there's a lot of ways to monetize in an app. Why go into what you have today? Why Muesly?
Yeah, it was fairly accidental. So after this is around 2017, 3 years after we launched the app, and we decided that hey, we could either become another media company to put ads around the content, around the tips, or we could become something else. That something else became pretty clear when we look at the top most popular tips that women created. That was product recommendation, skincare, beauty, product recommendations to each other. So women would write up, "Hey, this thing really worked for me. That thing worked for me." So we thought the problem was about product discovery. Is really figuring out what products would work, right? So I know a lot of skincare products because just watching my wife doing skincare routines, and most of the product don't seems to work. But I did not know the industry inside to know enough really what's going on. So what we thought is what if we use our corporate resource to find the best products and put a marketplace together so that everyone can now find the best skincare product or beauty product they were looking for. And so that's when we decided to rebrand the company also to Muesly, because at the time we were calling these women creating tips tippers, and calling them tippers in a marketplace tipping products that wasn't necessarily the right sort of a sentiment. So we start to call these women muses, and they start to recommend these products. And also in 2017, 2018, this was sort of the heyday of natural organic movement.
Yep.
There were a lot of brand new brands came up, really had a lot of promises. So we thought, let's go do it, right? We spent about 2 years building the marketplace and finding the brands. So we officially launched in late 2017 in New York City, and it was very successful launch. Was 200 some media member came, and Nina Garcia was editor in chief for Elle magazine at the time. Also personally came, and so we thought we found the business model. Um, so 6 months later after we launched, so this is the middle of 2018, we realized we did not solve the problem. In fact, none of the 900 skincare products that we had, didn't do much better than the products that people used in the past. Um, and so we had a hard time deciding what to do now, right? Shoot, we wasted $2 million, 2 years building this marketplace, and looks like it's gonna fail. It's gonna fail miserably. And so this is where experts does help a little bit. So we need to do a level set, reset. And so we invited a few people to be our advisors. Three ladies specifically became critical people to decide what to do, right? So one person is Dr. Marie Jin. She's now our chief medical officer. She was invited to help us to uh, basically looking through this 900 skincare products and what to do with them. Which one would work out of this 900. And then Dr. Jin became advisor, and she didn't even bother to look at those products. And she said, none of them will work. I said, none of them? Well, you got to study their ingredients and look at their claims. And I said, well, I have done that for the last 25 years in my practice, right? Every week, I've had ladies bring in tote bags of skincare products and ask me the same question. And literally spread it on my table with dozens of their products. And the first few years, I actually look at them, and now I know it's the same story. Nothing will work. And she did bring up, if you want something to work, you need to go prescription. I mean, I certainly know prescription drugs, but I didn't know for these cosmetics reasons, then there's prescription medications for, cosmetics, skincare needs. The two other ladies actually came from industry, because I really want to understand, what from skincare industry, right? So, why does L'Oreal, um, you know, why don't they do something about it, right? So one lady, her name is Lori Bush. She was the founding CEO of Rodan and Fields. She
Mhm.
helped to bring that company from 0 to $2 billion in revenue, and just retired in 2018. Another lady, Kimber Mazzarazzo, she was the EVP and GM for Proactive. Right? Both of them have, you know, 40 years of skincare product development from the industry each. So I asked them that same question: why, our marketplace products don't work? Well, what's wrong with them, right? Why can we find something that would work? And they actually shared some insights that I would never have guessed, right? It's basically, they said, we are not allowed to put ingredients that actually can do something for your skin conditions. If you put something topical on your skin, if that chemical can interact with your skin cell and do something good or bad, right? You know, remove wrinkles or dark spots for goodness, or for badness, causing cancer. Either way, that's the very legal definition of a drug. FDA would shut me down. So therefore, we're not allowed to put ingredients. All right. 30 years ago, that was slightly different, because back then we didn't understand the cellular structure, DNA as much. And therefore, the skincare companies can actually put ingredients as somewhat useful or efficacious. But today, if you are anybody, if you put something effective into your topical OTC skincare products, you will be shut down, right? So that was, oh my god, that is
That is huge.
huge insight, right?
I did not know that.
I
That
did
is
not
like
know
a
that either.
straight up system design flaw.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And it's a great example of how, like, sometimes, subject matter expertise really matters. Like, that it's not just about being very smart. You said it, like, I would have never gotten there on my own, and we've had some insights like that in our business where, I just would not have guessed, why a particular product feature was really desired by our customers. But then when you hear the explanation, you're like, "Oh, I get it now. I just wouldn't have gotten there on my own."
Right.
And this is a good example of where having diversity of experience and expertise with your team can really pay off.
Right. However, the experts don't necessarily well introducing breakthrough, right? So the breakthrough happens when you,
Yeah.
and this is again 2018, right? The telemedicine just came on the scene, right? I think
mm,
HIMSS was just launched maybe 6 months earlier. So we said, well, if it requires prescriptions, so then why don't we build a whole prescription uh, telemedicine platform? So we and literally by summer 2018, we decided to pivot again and shut down the marketplace and start to build telemedicine technology. And then that we start to realize a bunch of other stuff needs to be built because the whole infrastructure don't exist, right? The whole medication making became a critical piece because there are turn out that because these conditions we're treating are largely cosmetics, and insurance really doesn't like to cover them. And so therefore, there's no pharmaceutical company that have any kind of financial incentive to make these drugs available. So there are very few, a handful of cosmetics drugs pharmaceutical drugs that is available for the doctors to use. So we have to compound these medications ourselves, and that bring in a whole set of disciplines that I have no idea what they are and so we have to learn a lot of that stuff. But once you learn, right, the knowledge is really relatively easy to learn. Then you start to have new insights on how to create breakthroughs. So
This is like the whole putting green thing over again.
you-
You're now compounding medications.
yeah, we have to learn
Or
compounding. We have to know the whole chemical supply chain, which turned out to be actually perfect industries to be disrupted because they haven't been disrupted for a long time. They're very, very old industry, very inefficient. By making things yourself, you literally can reduce costs by 10x, 20x, like my golf green example,
yeah.
easily.
Jack, when did you guys figure out, or when did you know that this was the model that was gonna work? So, like, you launched the Face RX, like, you started doing telemedicine or tele-prescription, I forget what the technical term is. Um, was there a moment where you're like, "Okay, now we got it?"
Yeah, that actually I got it much earlier. I don't know if you read, my wife was the first patient,
Yeah.
patient zero. In fact, we call her, right? She had melasma since our son was born. So for 20 years, she tried everything on the planet, hundreds of creams, several years of laser, nothing worked, right? When we decided to do this, and Dr. Jean, our chief medical officer, she became our doctor, in-person doctor, because we literally before this is all, well, our telemedicine wasn't built yet. So I had to drag her to Dr. Jin's
Mhm.
office to prescribe this compound that we're making um, in person. And she did not believe this would work. And she absolutely hated that trip, even was only 10 miles away. And and she said, I tried, I visited dermatologists before and it didn't work either. And a month later, her melasma started to fade away. And six
Mhm.
weeks, um, after 6 weeks, her skin was just completely cleared up. That was amazing. And I said, a product like that kind of, with that kind of impact, there will be a huge market. So I'm intellectually convinced, and the results really convinced me that this is going to be huge, even when I had zero paying customer yet at the time.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Operators Titans. This show is only sponsored by AppLovin, the S&P 500 mobile gaming ad platform. You guys know that I'm an AppLovin defender. I spent In Q4 last year, over $3 million on the platform of my own money. We drove amazing results on par with Meta. And now, for the first time ever, they're opening up AppLovin to anybody. It's still invite only. You have to go to 9operators.com/AppLovin. They'll give you $5,000 in credit if you spend $5,000. It is a unique way to reach unique people. I think AppLovin has an audience that is harder to find on other platforms. These people are locked in. There's audio only, vertical videos. You can use the same creatives you're already running on Meta. They're unskippable, so there's a 100% thumb stop rate with an average view time of over 35 seconds. First come, first serve. Get in before your competitors. I've measured the results with house tests, with post-purchase surveys, with Northbeam. Every way I slice it, it seems net new and incremental to my business. So if you want to try to reach a new audience this Q4, if you just want to be less dependent on Meta and Google and you want to have another option, I think AppLovin is a good place to start. Go to 9operators.com/AppLovin to get this ad credit, but also the 9Operators team is making step-by-step guides about how to be successful on the platform. We're going to have Black Friday, Cyber Monday webinars. We're going to walk through how to set up and start spending and just the best practices, tips, and tricks. All of that and more is available at 9operators.com/AppLovin. You're listening to this right now. You run a business. You're interested in e-commerce. You're already spending money on Meta, Google, TikTok, wherever else. Time to add a new ad channel. Get access to $5,000 in free ad credit, get access to step-by-step guides about how to get this set up, and get access to our Black Friday, Cyber Monday Q4 scaling webinar. All of that is available because of AppLovin at 9operators.com/AppLovin. We want to thank them for the support of the Titans episode formats. Thank you.
From that moment to today, can you tell us like the ramp? Because it's been quite fast.
Yeah, it's been 6 years since, so we launched in May 2019. So we have grown from, one patient, my wife, to over 1 million. We have also expanded the treatments from only 2, the dark spot treatment, the spot cream, and the anti-aging cream, which is more of a companion cream to make the dark spot disappear faster, right? And all the way to now 24 different treatments across the body, face, hair, even inside, hormonal treatment, even some longevity-related medications now.
And so was the big breakthrough here, Jack, that you just made a better mousetrap, that you're actually solving a problem and that's been the competitive advantage?
Yeah, I would say a different mousetrap. Instead of trap them, maybe we just drive them away. We have a different technology altogether. So this is something that I don't think, it was not available. Even, theoretically, there should be medication like this available, but in reality, they are not available. And for at least for the vast majority of the population.
No, and when you solve a problem like that, I'm guessing the lifetime user values just have to be enormous, right?
That's where I wanted to go.
Because
Like,
yeah, that's gotta be I mean, just, like, Hims has shown this, that, like, when you do telemedicine and you do it well and you help solve a problem, like, it's enormously lucrative.
Yeah, absolutely. It is and because we solve a lifestyle, we literally call this a wellness problem, right? It's just cosmetics. It makes you look better, and it fundamentally changes people's life. I mean, we didn't realize how severe this impacts women's self-confidence, right? So end up when we solve this, they become a friend of the company for life. Every year we will launch new products. We will always recruit a patient to do the study with them with these new medications, and we just have people raise their hands. Every single time when we introduce something new, they want to participate. So they become literally a lifetime customer for us.
I never, for some reason, this is the first time where I am now seeing the relationship between prescription and subscription, even though the words sound the same. I guess, Jack, for me, like prescription was always like you take something for a temporary period to fix something, like some kind
Mhm.
of symptom.
Yeah.
And you're right, that distinction between like whatever the other thing is called and lifestyle is a huge insight. And I get now, I actually now I get why this business is as big as it is. Um, how many, could you just give us a sense for like what's the team size like now? Like how big is this company?
Yeah,
Just so people understand.
we have about 200 people, and so we have several locations. Our headquarters in Silicon Valley, but our pharmacy operations in Salt Lake City and Atlanta. So we have two
Mm,
giant pharmacies, each with both pharmacists, chemists, and technicians, and working there around the clock because every single medication is prescription first. Then a pharmacist would literally make your personal medications together what's coming that day with similar medications. So it's freshly made for each customer. Then we had this notion from farm to table, from pharmacy to your table.
mm. And if you, it sounds incredibly complicated, by the way. Like this is not your I buy the widget, I sell the widget type of business. What if you could change one thing about the company? Is there something that stands out? You're like, God, this is such a pain in the ass. I would love to change this.
Pretty much every day, we're trying to change everything because the pharmacy world is very old. When we started out, we I didn't know this. The pharmacy software has to run on DOS PC.
Oh,
PC with DOS, right? So we have to you can't buy a new one. You have to go install something really old, and we had to use our engineering resources to rebuild these software just to automate, and then turn out all the process to make medication happen was very very manual. Even with the DOS software, they can only do certain things very very rudimentary. So we're completely rebuilt that entire technology stack. We've been building it. We're continue to improving it. I would say, even just recently, our VP technology and one of the engineer went outside, just stayed with the pharmacist. This is after several years improvement already, right? We did another sort of sit down with our pharmacists, our technicians for 2 day, and they came back with a bunch of small innovations that improved our productivity by about 20-30x, just by watching how they do things every day. So there's so much to improve.
mm,
And then the entire drug making, we start to use a lot of machinery. The traditional pharmacy, compounding pharmacy use very, kind of like your kitchen operation feels like. Lots of mills, lots of pots and pans, mix them up, grind them, and then you make these small batches. But for us, at our scale, we need to automate a lot of this stuff. So we have bought dozens of machines, folding boxes, for example. Our
yep.
machine can fold boxes really quickly now. We used to have high schoolers and, retired people
Yeah.
to fold boxes. Now you're folding millions of them a year. That's just not possible. So the machine really helped. And even in buying those machines, we found ways to scale the machine at scale for 1/5, 1/10 of the market cost, and there are ways to do it.
Jack, the Mike asked you earlier if you could go back in time and give yourself advice when you were doing your first, because you run such a complicated machine now. I would like to flip that question. Like, if you could have a much younger version of yourself come and talk to you today, what advice would a much younger version of yourself give you running this style of company today?
I would probably I'm born to be an entrepreneur, but I'm also born to be very calculated. So I I need to get lined up all the things and convince myself this is good enough now to do it. But I realize now if I advise younger me, I just say, go do it.
Mm,
Don't do those calculations that much because you're going to figure it out. I would never have figured out Muesly, the current rendition of the Muesly, and without doing it, right? So by doing it, you will figure it out. You can't really pre-calculate them and, do the paper analysis. You just have to go touch the ground, refine, touch, um, and refine all at the same time in a flywheel loop.
Jack, I love you using the word calculated. It's the perfect word for a mathematician to say, I try to be too calculated. I try to look at it like an equation. And I just love that analogy because entrepreneurship is not like I start with an equation. And if I just solve this equation, it's living, it's breathing, it's moving around. And so that's why bias to action is so important because you can't sit there and solve the entire thing and then just go do it. Every day, you just have to address the problems and the challenges that are coming up and roll with the punches or you won't get anywhere. And so, in some ways, one of the most remarkable things about you is that you do have this incredibly mathematical, precise kind of part of your personality, and that you've overcome that with this willingness to learn and bias to action. And you can really see how it's helped to make you successful through all these different ventures that you've done.
Yeah, Jack, the thing listening to Mike, the other thing that stands out to me is I don't know that I've met too many consumer founders that have done like legit pivots along the way. Like typically when you enter into consumer, like that's the category that you're in. You've actually like really had to move this business model along over a decade. As you and what jumps out to me and really what I want to know is you started out with this huge community, like millions and millions of people. What is what is driving the business today? Where does demand come from? What's marketing look like in Muesly right now?
Yeah, our entire marketing changed, right? Although we had those millions of people reading our tips, I don't think it really helped our current business that much. It gave us some of the technology, like the social sort of viral techniques that we learned and still helped us. But the core of our marketing really came from the realization of it works, right? This thing work. For my wife, it worked for my wife. It worked for so many other patients, and the typical patient experience is similar to my wife. I try everything else, and the kitchen sink to solve this
Mm.
skink problem, and nothing had worked for 10 years, for 20 years, sometimes for 30 years, right? So that's the consumer we're dealing with, right? Someone like my wife. Turned out that, her experience was universal. It's 90% of our patient. They tried everything, nothing worked. So how do you convince someone like that to try for the 51st time, right? After they fail 50 times. And that was really the biggest challenge. And this is a challenge in our entire industry is people try, fail so many times. So for us, the only the everything has to come from the efficacy. So our medication must work, number one, and which is in my wife's chair's case, it worked. Wow, my God, this is sort of I got that building block. Then is really about amplification. Our entire marketing strategy is amplifying that success, not just from one person. We literally have tens of thousands of patients giving us that before and after, that impact pictures and videos and their stories about how this transformed them. And so our marketing actually became pretty simple. We're just amplifying their successes rather than,
Mm.
the industry love to use model or even supermodel if you have the budget, right? We do not use any model. We use real people, real results. So that's why you go to our website and you see all our ads. They are all real people with their name, their age, even their location. We will get consent for all of that, but then we get to use it. Um, I mean, this is actually from even day one in 2020. I think after 1 year of launching the product, we realized people were telling the same story of my wife's experience. So we created this campaign called Muesly Works because we got so many feedback and comments and reviews saying it works, it worked, it finally worked, you know. And then we end up having a competition. This is an annual competition now. We're in the 6 years. We're gonna be doing that. 5th year or 6 years doing that. And so every year we'll get thousands or sometimes tens of thousands of patients participating in this competition of submitting their story.
Mm.
And then we get infinite amount of marketing materials for amplification. So we use every channel possible to promote these successes. And once you see 10, 100, 1,000 of these successes, even you're stubborn, even you failed, 30 years, you may still give a chance of this new thing that might work.
Yeah.
This is what makes entrepreneurship great, though. I mean, you created a successful business by solving a problem for tens of thousands of people, and all you have to do is then get their voices out there because you impacted their lives. And I always want to keep that in front of entrepreneurs that this is what our job is. It's to actually make the world better, make people's lives better. And then, yeah, there's a lot of financial rewards. There's a lot of benefits for that, but it starts with making people's lives better. And a lot of times that gets lost. People get so focused on how do I build a successful business or what is the marketing hack to grow my business. The easiest way to grow your business is to positively impact people's lives. And that word of mouth, they're going to tell other people about it. They're going to be happy to send in a video talking about how your product solved a problem they couldn't solve for decades. And I just love it. It's inspirational to hear. Anytime I hear an entrepreneur has really solved a pain point for customers, I love it. And I love the success that you're having with the business because it's the right type of success.
Yeah, Jack, the brilliance of it is in its simplicity, right? Yeah. By just amplifying all of these customer stories, other people get to see themselves in all of these variety of these faces and these people. Like seeing, because that's what we're looking for as consumers. It's like, oh, that person looks like me and has my problem and talks like me, and they're kind of
Yeah,
my
like a
age, look in the same
superstar
place. And
actress is an
yeah,
avatar for me, right?
no, there's no
That's
relatability.
right. Yeah, I mean, in fact, we in our app we added the forum, which is patient only forum, right? You can count. There's actually a count on how many people are participating in that forum. It's close to 500,000. So
Wow.
every other patient is participating in this forum.
What are some marketing channels where sharing these testimonial
Yep.
videos has really been effective?
Yeah.
Yeah, we use a large, array of marketing channels because we go after women, middle-aged women, so from 30 to 90 years old with a medium age of 45.
90 is middle age, Jack.
Yeah, that's right.
90 is the new 40, Matt.
Yeah, that's right. The new 40. And one thing that surprised us, actually, one channel that's typically not obvious to advertisers for company like us is actually gaming side.
Mm.
Turned out a lot of women playing social games. These are not your, you know, shooting games and big screen, and these are Farmville kind of
Yeah,
games
Candy Crush,
that
that kind
people
of stuff.
play, right? So we will find actually very interesting tractions on that kind of game platform, and AppLovin happened to be the advertising platform that they can push our content and our successes, these before and after into women's while they're playing their social games.
That is very
That makes a
cool.
ton of sense. I mean, and like you said, it's a great example of like once you know your demographic, then you can kind of work backwards into where's our demographic spending time? How do we get in front of them? And you have to do the hard work of understanding your demographic. But obviously, like casual gaming, um, mobile gaming, this is a really like when you look at the statistics, there's a lot of females in the demographic you're talking about, the age band you're talking about that are spending a lot of time playing these games. So it makes a lot of sense why that would work for you.
Yeah, and also we these games are interruptible, right? What we found is that anything interruptible, like playing these casual game, there's never an end, right? It just like keep going, and so the ads would be very effective. And similarly on TV, for example, news is interruptible. Talk shows are interruptible. Where like deep drama, murder, it's harder to they're so sucked into that content, so they don't want to be so. Oh yeah, yeah, Musely. Okay, let's wait until the show comes back, right?
I think about
Versus
that all the time when I'm watching a show and it's like somebody just got killed and it's like, and then it just like randomly cuts to a commercial that's like a happy, upbeat commercial. And I'm like, there's no way that advertiser would ever choose, it's programmatic, the algorithm's doing it or whatever, but it's like a very awkward. You wouldn't want that association with your product, but nobody can control it.
I would like to transition to this segment of the show that we call the Titan 10. And there's going to be rapid fire questions, Jack.
Okay.
that I am so curious to hear you answer because of these, like, characteristics of the business that you have that are so different from what we typically see. So, I'm just gonna fire off the questions, uh, try to answer from, like, the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Alright,
Let's give it a shot.
here we go. Alright, first question. You're stranded on a desert island, and you need to know how your business is doing. What are the 2, 3, 4 metrics that you would care most about?
Yeah. This is actually, we do this without having to be on an island, but
Yeah,
so our annual must do innovation would be probably my first. We have this top 20 initiatives. Every 6 months, we'll reshuffle the deck.
okay.
Right. So must have innovations that on an annual basis. We also track monthly in terms of actual growth. So we absolutely set goals for the monthly growth, not
Mm,
annual, not quarterly, not weekly. Month is really a good cadence in terms of time, and so we set that goal and we try to beat it. And then on a weekly basis, we track the unit economics, right? Because that's where the bottom line also. So we
yeah.
track profitability. Okay, we may be growing well this week, but did we spend too much money or too little money, right? And that's how we were able to achieve this 190x growth in the last 6 years while we burn very little. I think we even talk about it publicly. We only burn total of $5 million
Wow.
in cash in the last 6 years, and we've been profitable in the last 3-4 years. And so to build a very, relatively large business.
Yeah. You're also allowed to take a book, but it can't be a business book to this island. What are you taking? What's that book?
Uh, I love Freakonomics. I don't know if that's a business book.
That's perfect. No, that's
Uh,
great.
yeah,
It's such a fun read.
yeah, it's really gives me new insights, and if sometimes you forget about the principles, and then you go back to visit the book, and then give you new inspiration.
Do you have on that, do you have a sort of like 1, 2, whatever, a contrarian belief about business that, like, most people would disagree with you on?
Yeah, I think you know a lot of time people believe just hiring experts, get sort of the current state of art is really what makes business great. To me, that only gives you a baseline, right? The contrarian approach is that don't do what other peoples are doing. Don't follow best practice. Best practice you need to know, right? But does not differentiate you at all.
Mm.
So
Very cool.
no more best practice.
Love it. I know there's a few people that'll love hearing that answer. Um, when you think of, like, you're the CEO of your company, when you think of leadership, what do you think is the most important word in leadership?
Um, we believe this founder mode leader,
Uh,
right? So gets your hands dirty, refine through touch and feel. Again, do not just sit, lead from the front. Even at a manager level, at CEO level, everybody needs to lead from the front line, not in the rear.
so that was leadership. What about if you zoom out and you look at business, just business in general? What's the word that stands out that you think is this is the most important word?
Innovate for us. That for
Innovate.
us, innovation is the word.
Yeah, I thought that was actually interesting. That was your first answer on the, like, you're on a desert island. You were actually like, "Okay, how is my innovation coming?" It wasn't a
How do I track
metric,
innovation?
it wasn't
Yeah.
growth metric, it was like, "How's our innovation pipeline?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's I have not heard that one yet,
Our market is very dynamic. If you don't innovate, you lose.
Mm.
And you have to stay ahead.
I got a fun one for you then. What's the best meal of the day and why?
I know this might be controversial. For me, it's dinner. And a lot of people, Brian Johnson would say, skip dinner, right? So,
Yeah.
and for longevity purpose. But I found, number one, I don't eat heavy breakfast, so that's not a meal for me. Just coffee and then something very light. And then lunch is always on the runs, busy, so you eat pretty simple. For me, dinner is where I can get the full range of nutrition. I eat a little earlier than 5-6 hours before I go to bed. I would definitely walk afterwards. That's really a religion for me. But more importantly, by knowing a lot of the bioscience in recent years, we need energy during sleep. A lot of people think we're sleeping, therefore we don't need much nutrition. Therefore, you can go empty stomach. The entire repair and rebuild happens overnight for us, right?
Mm.
And so the body needs nutrition, and having dinner, full good meal dinner is critical for that rebuild.
Very cool. I like that answer. Also, super calculated, dude. You're on brand right now.
What's the go-to
Uh,
food for dinner?
Oh, I love steak and sushi, sashimi. So those are two. If I have to choose one, or I don't know which one to choose, to be honest.
we be good friends, Jack. That's it.
Okay.
You don't need to choose. We just do them both. Um, okay, so right now when you look at you're in this consumer world, right? This is the last two questions are kind of in the inverse of each other. You look at everything in consumer. Is there an overrated growth tactic or topic that you just think like everybody's talking about this, everybody spends their time here, but it's just super overrated?
Yeah, every year seems to be a new topic. I think in the last year, it's been MMM,
Yeah.
marketing mix,
Yeah.
modeling.
Medium, smallly. Yeah, yeah,
Oh my God. Company contact me for doing that. The problem I see that was just, it is certainly the marketing mix is happening, right? People, but however, those modeled oftentimes mislead you to what really made the difference, because people come in with whatever their habit, right? Most of our customer come in organically. But however, right, whether they saw this friends talking to them, or they saw our success on Facebook, on social, or even watching TV ads. But if you use this model, almost vast majority of them come from Google,
Mm,
because it doesn't matter, right? Who even you tell your sister, say, "Hey, Muesly, yeah, you got to try it." And then the sister say, "Oh, Muesly, type Muesly." And then the first thing pops up on Google will be an ads probably. And then
yeah.
when you click on that, Google search a result. So that's why it's often misleading if you look at the number by itself. You have to understand exactly the consumer journey to truly understand. And it's multidimensional to start with. And the weight has to be based on their journey rather than the typical MMM. What
Yeah. Yeah, the computer scientist in me says if you think MMM is great, you should go study what they are and look at how many versions of these damn things there is.
Yes, yes.
It's really complicated. Okay, so then what's the most underrated growth tactic? What should people do?
Underrated is really just go, deep dive in, get your hands dirty,
Mm,
and do it yourself. People just love to hire experts and agencies and to do marketing for
yep,
them rather than build. So our marketings are all done in house. We pretty much do not use, other than maybe TV buying
yep,
itself, right? All the strategy, all the and implementation, and it changes constantly.
yep.
I love that
That's great.
because we've actually looked at anytime we can put the resources towards hiring a good person and giving them time to really train internally, we have never felt like we've been outperformed by an external partner.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
when you really are dedicated, it's almost impossible for somebody who's fractionally doing the thing to be able to outperform you over the long run. And I understand that sometimes you can't afford somebody full time, and that's a good reason when you just don't have the resources and the bandwidth to do it at that level. But as soon as you can bring something into your team, we found the exact same thing, Jack.
yeah, absolutely. And it's not little difference; it's huge difference.
Big
Yep,
difference. Yeah.
that's massive.
There's a lot of value in thinking deeply about anything is kind of what I've learned.
Yeah.
And when somebody's fractional, they by definition can't think deeply about a problem and about your contextualized answer to it. And so that's why you over time want to build a team of people that have really spent a lot of time thinking about your particular problem and how that you can uniquely address it.
Yeah, I mean, this is true in general, right? Business win, lose on the last mile, right? That extra advantage, right? Someone who has 10 accounts to manage on a weekly basis can give you only 4 hours. You cannot really have that unique last mile that they can, that can help your company to break through.
Yeah,
Right? So that's why it's fundamentally you have to do it in house.
and there's nowhere more true than that in consumer when you actually deliver the product.